In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at Boolean values and variables, Boolean variables. Boolean values are things that are used frequently in all types of programming. You can't get away from them really, because a Boolean value is anything that resolves to either true or false. So the two most typical and incredibly important places where they're used would be in an if statement. So if we had something like if a, well, let's just say if a equals b, then so in an if statement we might have our condition. So in this case I've said if a equals b, and we could also have this in a loop. So we might have a loop that says exit when well, why don't we try flipping that around? A is not equal to B, end loop. And we could fill in some other things here, but the important part is I just wanted to show you the structure. So in the case of an if statement, if A equals B, so that's something that resolves to true or false. If A is equal to B, this is going to become true, and if A is not equal to B, this is going to become false. And the same thing is down here, exit when I've got this A not equal to B. And I can have all sorts of conditions. Let's modify this a little bit. So I'm going to get rid of the loop for now. And I'm just going to look at this if A equals B. Now we could have had something more here. We might have had if A equals B and C equals D and E equals F. There's no limit to how many of these Boolean expressions I could put in here. And as we get more and more of these Boolean expressions, then it becomes useful to start thinking about things in terms of Boolean variables. So first of all, just to show you, just to give you an idea, and I think I've done this in a previous tutorial, but I'm now actually I'm going to take this away as well, at least temporarily, and I'm just going to put in a simple Boolean statement. So if I put these two statements, put 1 equals 1 and put 1 equals 2, well, what are the results of those? 1 equals 1, that's a true statement, and 1 equals 2, that's a false statement. And if I run that, the first one is true and the second one is false. It is possible for me to have a variable. So var, let's say equal Boolean, and I'm going to use this variable to test various conditions. So I could say equal, and I'm going to use 1 equals 1. Put equal. Let's get rid of the other one. So take a look at this very short little program. I've created a variable called equal, and it's a Boolean variable. That means it contains the values true or false. We just, using those put statements, we just saw that 1 equals 1, that's a true statement. That's always true. And so equal now has the value true. And so when I put equal, that should give me the value of true. If I change this program to say 1 equals 2, we know that's false, which means that this whole value is going to actually be the same as if I just typed the word false there. And when I put equal in this case, I get false. Now, this can be really useful to help you keep track of whether or not you've met a condition. And I'm going to actually put together a few little simple conditions. It actually draws on a program that I've perhaps referenced in other tutorials, certainly one that I've used in classes before, and that has to do with voting. So I'm in this example, in the little example I'm going to do here, I'm going to look at voting conditions for Canada. So we're going to look at Canadian voting conditions. So what are the conditions? What if I had what kind of statement would I say about being able to vote in Canada? So I would say, for example, if what are the things I would check? I would say if your age is greater than or equal to 18, then you can vote in Canada. And your citizenship is equal to, or let's say citizenship is equal to Canadian. And if I did that, then put you can vote, else put you cannot vote. And if I wrote up that simple program, well, I'd need a couple of variables, of course. So var age is an int, var citizenship is a string, put what is your age, get age, put what is your citizenship, get citizenship. And in doing those two things, I can check, my program can check these things. So what is your age? So if I put in 21, and what is your citizenship? And if I put in Canadian, then it says you can vote. But if I get either of those two things incorrect, or if I fail those tests, then I cannot vote. I could also check these conditions using a Boolean variable. So how about I create a Boolean variable called var old enough Boolean and var correct citizen Boolean. So how would I check those? Well, then I actually might have a little extra code here and say old enough. What does it mean to be old enough? That means my age is greater than or equal to 18. Correct citizen could be citizenship equals Canadian. And I'm actually going to, just for the sake of clarity, I'm going to show that each of these items, I'm putting them in brackets, each of these items resolves themselves to either true or false. And so I could then modify my if statement to be if old enough and correct citizen, then. So now see how much more nicely that reads. If you are old enough and you are of the correct citizenship, essentially, then you can vote. Else put you cannot vote. So this is a way, that's one way you can use Boolean variables, which is to make your code a lot more readable. And another way you can use Boolean variables is if your conditions are getting really long, you could actually use Boolean variables so that it doesn't clutter up your if statement. Now this is actually pretty clean. So now I'm going to be a little bit artificial, and I'm actually going to create a third Boolean variable, which is called can vote Boolean. And I could take the can vote and set that to be equal to old enough and correct citizen. So now I've taken these two Boolean results and I've combined them using Boolean logic, that's the and now I've got can vote. And I've condensed all of this conditions, all of these tests, I've condensed them down to a single result there. Can vote. And so there's another example of Boolean. And one last example of Boolean would be, let's say, a Boolean function. That would be a function that actually returns a Boolean value. And we could, once again, same idea, it's just like any other variable. So we can have variables that are true or false, and we can also have functions that are true or false. It's just like an integer, it's just like a character, it's just like a string, it's like any other variable. So hopefully that gives you some ideas on how you might use Boolean variables in your own code.